All right, in this our cybersecurity bootcamp, these are the things that we are going to cover. First of all, we are going to touch the fundamentals of information technology and ethical hacking. Here, we are going to learn about computer systems, hardware, software, and basic networking that are related to cybersecurity. Then we are going to go into an operating system which we are going to make use of while our course is on, which is a Linux. So we're going to do a Linux crash course. Then we also do an open source intelligence because this is an ethical hacking course. So we are going to learn about open source intelligence by using Google Docking and some Kali Linux tools like AMAS and the rest of them. Then we are going to touch on scanning and enumeration and also web application techniques. So if time will permit us, we'll cover more. So this is the first class, and it's about information technology fundamentals. Here, we are going to look at computer systems, both hardware and software components. Then we are going to look at operating systems, and also we look at networking. Under networking, we are going to touch network topologies, OSI model, and TCP model, IP, MAC address, and also information technology basics. All right. So let's get down to business. Computer hardware and software. You know, in computer, there are 4 basic components, which I believe we must all have heard about it, which are the input system, the storage devices, the processing, and the output units. These are the components that makes up the computer hardware. I know that computer is divided into 2, both hardware and software. So in the hardware, you have the input components, you have the storage components, you have the processing units, and also the output. So what happens in a computer, not just a computer, but a mobile device, is when an information gets in, it is first of all stored. And when it is stored in a volatile memory, the CPU now fetches the information from the storage unit and processes it, acts on it, and also when it is done with processing, it gives you back the already manufactured data through the output devices like your screen, or maybe to be printed if you are going to make use of a printer. So parts of the computer hardware, you have the motherboard. So motherboard is something all of us must have seen in the past. You all have seen SIM card, the chip that is at the back. So motherboard is like a giant chip that has circuitries running across over it, that is crisscrossing it. So what it does, it is the computer system, it is a part of the computer whereby all the computer peripherals are plugged into. It has a port where your USB drive, your keyboard, and every other computer components is being plugged into. Then there is the CPU. So the CPU is the processing unit, is like the brain of the computer. It is in it that all the arithmetic and all the data processing takes place. So it has both the logic unit and the arithmetic unit. And this CPU, for it to process data, it has to do it at a clock speed. That's the speed at which it performs. That is why some people's computer or some people's phone might be faster than other people's phone, or some people's computer might be faster than other people's computer because they have a faster CPU, which is their speed is measured in clock speed. If you take a look at your system, you see, if you go to if you click on, for people that are using Windows, if you click on your Windows button and go to your system information, you see the speed of your CPU, and it is the unit for it is measured in gigahertz. So this CPU, they are stored in what is called microprocessors. So that the microprocessors are what contains like more than 2 or even 3 CPUs. There are some phones, newer phones, that if you go through them, you see that it has something like that is called quad core. So that quad core means that it has 4 processors. So that is what the CPU does. It determines the processing speed of your mobile device. Then other computer hardware components are random access memory. So random access memory is a volatile memory whereby information are stored for the CPU to fetch the information from. So CPU cannot store information. It needs the RAM for it to help it in providing information. And this RAM is very volatile in the sense that when the light goes off in your system, all the data that are stored in there get wiped off. So whenever you put on the system again, maybe the light comes on and you put on the system, you see that some things that you're working on are no longer there. You have to start clicking and dragging them and continuing from where you stopped. If your last uh, material wasn't saved, so you have to restart again. So that is what the RAM does. Then there is the hard drive. Hard drive also is a memory, but a hard memory. So in a hard drive, there are 2 types of hard drive. There is solid state drive, which is SSD, and is very, very popular, and also the HDD, which is also very popular. So SSD is a more up-to-date technology compared to hard disk, the HDD. Then also finally, there is the power source. Those are the components you find in the computer hardware. Then coming to the software part of the computer, there is what we call operating system and system software. Softwares are divided into 2, operating system and system software. So operating system is what all of us are very conversant with. So there are the software component that interacts with the hardware. So it's more like it gives hardware an opportunity for it to be functional. So if you have an ordinary laptop or ordinary mobile device and there is no OS or operating system inside it, it is not going to function. It's as good as a furniture. It is when an operating system is now being installed in it, that is when the functionality will now come in. It is the operating system that will take information from you, and when it gets this information from you, it's going to relay it to what we call binary language or machine language, which is the language that computers and other mobile devices understand. So there are different operating systems. There are the ones that are peculiar to mobile devices like phones and tablets. And there is also the one that is peculiar to So they're the one that are also peculiar to computers. So let us take a look at the operating system, those ones that are peculiar to computers and the ones that are peculiar to mobile devices. So the ones that are peculiar to computers, like Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, these are very popular. You might have heard of Windows. I don't think there's anybody that makes use of a computer that hasn't heard of a Windows. That is very popular. It is a proprietary software or operating system. Hold on, can you guys give me a minute so I can admit other people? I think more people want to use it. All right. Sorry about that. Let us continue. Okay. Okay. So there are operating systems which are peculiar to computers. Why they are peculiar to computers is because they are more sophisticated. So they can handle heavier tasks. They can handle heavier and more complex tasks. So that is why they are peculiar to computers. Then the ones that are mobile, that are for mobile, like iOS and Android. That is why if you go to market, you buy Android phone, and either you buy Android phone or you buy an iOS phone, which is peculiar to Apple products. So coming to the computer operating systems, first of all, let us take a look at Windows. Windows is a proprietary operating system that is exclusively preloaded in Microsoft devices. So if you buy a Microsoft device, you automatically see that it is preloaded with a Windows operating system. It has it has a GUI and also what we call a command prompt. Some of us might not have heard what a command prompt is, and they might not even have made use of a command prompt. We are going to make use of command prompt in our class. By the end of this class, we are going to make use of command prompt, not just in Windows, but also in our Linux. So that is for us to understand what command prompt is. You have to be patient while we get there. Then for GUI, graphical user interface, what that means is when you put on your system, you have to drag your mouse through on your screen, select whatever you want to click. Maybe there is an icon you want to select, or maybe there is a file you want to open. So it is because Windows has a graphical user interface shortened as GUI. That is why you are able to use your mouse and go to the particular file or folder or an icon that you want to select and click on it. So that is what GUI means. Then command prompt is just a, a, a platform where you can access almost everything that you can do with GUI, but in addition to it, you can type in commands and that will do or carry out further tasks. Then if you come to Mac OS, which is an operating system that is specifically meant for Apple devices, so it is an operating system that is also proprietary, and it comes preloaded when you buy Apple products. when you buy their device, their computers. So you find out that Mac OS is preloaded into it. So it's just the same thing as Windows. It basically does the same thing as Windows. But when it comes to security, if you're a cybersecurity professional, you see that uh, the infrastructure in macOS is more advanced when it comes to security. It is more secure compared to Windows. I think so, some of us are supposed to know the reason. And the reason being that you don't, you find it very difficult to download some softwares if you're not downloading it from the Apple source. So then finally, when it comes to the last one, which is not very popular, that is Linux. So Linux is what we are going to make use in this class. So Linux is not proprietary. It is an open source operating system. And any good programmer that has a knowledge of working with operating systems, that has the knowledge of developing operating systems, can pick up the Linux source code and work on it, and uh, and decide to develop it to his or uh, to his or her taste. And that is why we have a lot of Linux distributions like Ubuntu, like Fedora. There is Kali Linux, which is very popular when it comes to security. There is also Parrot OS that came from Kali Linux. So yeah, it is as a result of people coming together and they feel maybe Kali Linux is too heavy for them. They did a lightweight Parrot OS, which does the same thing as Kali Linux and also comes with the same security tools as Linux does. Then coming to the mobile devices and the operating system, there is iOS, which is an Apple product. It comes preloaded in Apple mobile devices like their phones and their tablets. It comes with iOS. Then there is Android. Android also is open source. That is why so many uh, mobile phone companies make use of Android, like Samsung, Nokia, Techno, and so many of them. They make use of uh, Android because it is open source. So what they do is that they copy it and make it suitable for them. So we've done operating system. So we are done now with introduction to computer hardware and software. We are now going to go into computer networking. So what is networking? Networking is simply when two mobile devices comes together and want to share files. For example, I'm here with my computer, and all of us, I believe, wherever we are, we have our own computers, our mobile devices with which we connect to this class. So it is because of networking that is why we are able to connect our devices together. If you can see that there's Alex and Bob. So Alex and Bob want to share files, they want to share documents. So this can be made possible for them to connect. So whenever you connect a mobile device to another, or when you connect a laptop to another PC, you have formed a network. It might be through wire or it might be wireless, but you already formed a network. And mind you, networking does not come into play when you connect only two mobile devices. You can also connect other things like your printer for the sake of printing out documents from your laptop or from your PC. So when you do that, when you do that, that is networking. So in networking, there's what we call packets and frames. You know, when two computers talk, they don't speak a normal language. You don't get to speak English, or you don't get to speak Swahili, or you don't get to speak French. What they do is they send what we call packets from the sending computer to the receiving computer. So these packets or frames are interpreted in zeros and one. So they don't send it in a normal high-level language. It is translated in zeros and ones, and when the receiving computer gets the information, it retranslates it back to the high-level language after it has worked on it. And these high-level, these zeros and ones or binaries are not human readable. We are going to talk about this later. Then there's what I want us to talk about. This IP address. How are they being able to communicate? How are these computers able to connect? It is because of what we call an IP address. So an IP address is an address that each computer in a network has. So for you to connect to this class today, that means your computer or your mobile device has an IP address. And for me also to be able to share what I'm sharing, that means let me explain IP address in the basic sense of it. If you can look at my screen, there are houses, then there is an internet street. Let us call it a street. Give it a name, internet street. So what it does is each house has its own address. That is why when you order for something, let's say you went to an e-commerce website, maybe Alibaba or Jumia or Gigi or any of them, you went to buy something. So for them to be able to locate you, you have to put your address, your house address. And when the dispatch rider comes with your goods, he will deliver the package to you because you are able to you are able to see your address, your house address. So that is how it is in computer. Every computer has its own house address, but we don't call it house address. We call it an IP address. So each of them, each computer on the street has their own IP address, and it doesn't get mixed up. So whatever that is, any packet that is being sent to you will be located by your IP address and it will be delivered to you. And that is why when someone wants to call you, the number doesn't go to the wrong person. So that is what an IP address does. Then there is what we call computer protocols. So computer protocols, this is just how computers communicate. This comprises of rules and conventions that help in digital communication over a network. Now, for example, you are on a phone call, you want to make a phone call. Maybe you are Alex, I want to call your friend Bob. So when you dial Bob's number, and Bob picks and you tell Bob, hello, Bob. And Bob answers you, hi, Alex. How are you doing? Bob will answer you, I'm doing great. And how are you? So this is the normal way for the conversation between two people that are on a call. That is how it is on the computer. You don't just call someone and start shouting. You first of all make sure that you are calling the right person, and also for there to be proper communication, you have to follow these protocols. You may call someone and start shouting, and the person will drop the call and end the call on you. The person is on his right. So that is the protocol of communication. When it comes to computers, there are protocols that computers follow for them to communicate. And there are different types of protocol. There is a network protocol. There are also internet protocol. There are also email protocol. We are going to learn this when we go further. Now, I want us to touch network terminologies. We are going to take a look at host, networking. Also, we will talk more about IP address, hub, switch. These are networking devices, repeater, bridge, and router. At the end of the class, you'll be able to understand what these are and their functions. So host is, in a simple form, is a mobile device. The host can come in the form of a laptop, a PC, or a phone, or tablet. Even if your refrigerator can be connected to the internet, It can serve as a host. If you're like for people that make use of a IP printer, the printer that can be connected to the internet, it is called IP printer with an IP address. So that is also a host. So anything that can be connected, any device that can be connected to the internet is called a host. There are smart TVs, wristwatches that are smart, cars, even cars. They are all examples of hosts. They can be categorized into clients and servers. So clients is you and I that are requesting for information, that is requesting for data. For example, you want to log into Facebook, then you open your computer, then you click on your browser, maybe Mozilla Firefox, maybe any of the, or maybe Chrome, or uh, any of the browsers, and you open the address bar and you type in, for example, facebook.com. So what will happen is Facebook on the other end, their server will respond to you and bring out the page for you to log in. Then if you are a new user, you'll be expected to fill in your details, like your name, your address, your phone number, email address, and also you're expected to also put in your password, which will be stored when you click save. So Facebook will take this information and save it. The server will fetch those information from you and save it at what we call the database. So next time when you want to log in your Facebook account, what you will do is simple. Open your browser, go to facebook.com, and when the Facebook opens, you fill in your information, your email or phone number and password. So what it will now do, what the server will now do, it will be that it will collect this information and run it across the database and check if you are a registered member with the information you provided earlier. That is why sometimes if you make a mistake in a password or you make a mistake in your username, you don't get access because server couldn't reconcile the information you provided with the information you stored before when you opened the account in the database. So the client is you and I. Then the server is another computer that is somewhere. What it does is for it to serve information for anybody that needs the information. Like Facebook have their own server, and every other website, they have their own server. They are ready at every time. They don't go off. Even if you go off, servers don't go off. They are meant to be alive, to work day and night. And servers are just computers, just normal computers that we use. That is the same thing as servers, but it is not the same operating system that we make use of, that the servers are also making use of. So the servers make use of operating systems that are peculiar for servers. It doesn't provide this like things like Microsoft Word and the rest of them that we use. It is a more complex operating system that is meant to hold information and serve it whenever a client needs it at the other end. So what client does is to request for information from the server, and what server does is for server to present the information that is requested by the client. So IP addresses. An IP address is simply an address which identifies each computer or each host on the network. So for a device to be connected to the internet, it must have an IP address. And all of us, our devices have an IP address. It is a 32 bits of zeros and one or binaries. They are represented in human readable, in non-human level, which is 0 or 1. But there's what we call DNS that translates these zeros and one to the normal uh, address that we know. For example, facebook.com. I've given a lot of example with facebook.com. Facebook.com has an IP address, but you as a client, you cannot see that IP address. What you will see is the URL, but that URL is represented in zeros and one or binaries, which is in 32 bits. So computer sees zeros and one, but what you see is facebook.com or the URL. So these IP addresses is what represents each host or each website or each software in the internet. That is what gives them their own specific address. Then IP address and subnetting. We will discuss subnetting if we go deeper, but I just want to introduce us to what subnetting is. Now, let's say there is a company that has a branch in Abuja. They also have a branch in Lagos, and they have a branch in, let's say, Ghana. Then in this company, they have their sales department, they have their admin department, they have their IT department. Likewise, in other branches that they have. So these sales departments have computers. All the people, let's say there are up to 10 people in sales department, and admin, there are about 7 people, and in IT, maybe 20, beginning to 20, 27, or rather 37 or 27 people. So it is this IP address that identifies each one of them in the network. Now, what subnetting does is that the way it is being done is that the company, let's say cybersecurity.com is the name of the company that has Abuja branch, it has Lagos branch and Ghana branch. So this cybersecurity.com, we have an address that is 110, that is, let's say, 110. Then the Abuja branch, after the first octet of 110, we take 10, as 110.10. Then Lagos branch, we take 110.20. Then Ghana branch, we take 110.30. Then when you now come into Abuja branch, their sales departments, remember, they have taken 110.10, then the sales department will be you now have 33. So what they have now is 110.10.33 for all the computers that are in sales department under Abuja branch. Then if yours is let's say your own is number 10, your IP address will be 110.10.33.10. Then another person that is in sales department in Lagos branch, you have 110.20.33.10 or 17. Then for someone that is in Ghana, you have 110.30. Let's say 33.24. So if, for example, someone that is in Abuja gets an email from someone and he looks at the IP address, let's say he doesn't know who sent the IP address, what he will do is just to take a look at the IP address. When the IP address tag is 110, you already know that this IP address belongs to their company, which is cybersecurity.com. Then if it is 110.10, the person will now know that this computer belongs to Abuja branch. But if it is 110.20, the person will automatically know that the message is coming from Lagos branch. Then if it is plus 33, that means it is someone in sales department in Lagos branch. Or if it is 110.20.44, the person will know that it is coming from a computer that belongs to admin department in Lagos branch. Likewise, in Ghana branch, for example, the chief technology officer in Ghana branch, whose IP address is 110.30.55.36, sends a message to someone in admin. Maybe he wants to complain that You want to take leave. You want to go on a sick leave. So the IP address will carry 110.30, which is Ghana branch, then 55, which belongs to the IT department, then 36, which belongs to that particular computer. We are going to talk more on this if time will permit us. So other networking devices, we have hub. So when more than two computers now start coming together to form a larger network, and for them to send information, this can be controlled by what we call a hub. So a hub is a networking device that stands in the center to monitor the information that is being sent across the network. Let's say, for example, computer A wants to send a message across to computer B. What the hub does is that the hub will receive the message first, and the hub will now send it to the recipient computer. This helps to reduce what we call clashing of information or clashing of information across the network. So each computer or host that connects to the hub through a dedicated wire. So let us say that these lines that are drawn here are wires that are connected, that connect each computer to this hub. So the hub is now what keeps addresses and sends the various information to the recipients. Then there's another networking tool that is called repeater. So what a repeater does is that repeater helps for information to get to the final destination without losing its content or without losing its, let me say content, without losing its content. For example, when you are communicating over a long distance, we find out that information dissipates, the quality of information dissipates while it travels. Now, for example, if you are speaking with someone and the person is before you, standing right in front of you, the person will be hearing what they are saying, and you, on the other hand, will be hearing what the person is saying. But when the person starts drifting away, you find out that the person will need to project his voice for both of you to be able to communicate with each other, because with the distance, you find out that the wave is reducing. So there's a level that the person will get to, both of you won't be able to hear each other again. So what a repeater does is that if you hear, it will receive the information and repeat it. Let's say the distance is still far, the next repeater will be there to pick up that information and repeat it also. And if there's another repeater, it also pick up the information and repeat it also before it gets to the final destination. So this helps the information for it not to get lost over the internet. So remember that when packets travel over a long distance of time, they tend to lose their quality, or they become weaker and they lose their speed. And it is this repeater that helps them to retain the information so that when it gets to the final destination or the recipient, it doesn't lose its quality. Then there is switch. Switch is more like a hub, but it is a better hub. There are some limitations that the hub has. One is collision of information, because hub is not an intelligent networking device, but switch was developed so that it will overcome those limitations of a hub. So what a switch does is that it keeps the address of each computer that is connected to it on the network. Let's say this first computer, let's say they have about 4 computers that are connected to one switch. The switch keeps what we call an address table. So if computer A is sending information to computer C, it will first of all send it to the switch. So what the switch will now do is that the switch will now look at the information and okay, I'm like,
Yeah,
where is
Vikarata.
where is this information coming from and where is it going to? So if you take a look at the header, packets have what we call header. So it is in the header that the information about the computer is. If mic is on, please let us remember to mute ourselves so that we don't interrupt others. Thank you very much. Hello, please. Who is interrupting ourselves? Can you mute yourself? August, August, please. So, switch, what it does is that it will keep a record of the address table. It will keep an address, it will keep the record or the address table. So this address table is used when information is being passed across from computer A to computer C. So when the switch receives this information, it look at the header and be like, okay, 192.34.96.244. Okay, this belongs to computer C. Then do not forward the message to the rightful receiver. So when computer C wants to respond to the message that was sent to it, it will send it back to the switch, and switch will look at the header and the IP address of the computer, that's of the destination computer, and forward it appropriately to the recipient computer. Then there is a situation whereby maybe computer A, computer B, computer C have been communicating over the network for a long period of time, while computer D is dormant. So the switch might have forgotten that there is computer D that is connected to it. It has forgotten the address of computer D. Then all of a sudden, computer B wants to send information to computer D. Remember, computer D is an introvert. He doesn't communicate. He just wants to stay on his own. Then all of a sudden, an information comes to computer D right away. And switch now looks at it and it sees that it doesn't have the IP address of the computer D. What it is going to do is that it is going to send it to all the computers connected to it. Then when D receives the information, it's like, oh, wow, who remembered me? Okay. Then it will now act on the information and send back to computer B. So this is an example of an address table and how it works. So these labels are lines, or you can call it lines, through which all these computers are connected to the switch. So for example, Alice sends a package to Bob. So this channel is what is going to, the information will flow. It will flow to channel 1 and get to this switch. And the switch will look at the IP address and see that, okay, this IP address belongs to Bob, and it will send it through channel 2 to Bob. And if Bob wants to send a message to Candy, it will send it to channel 2 to switch. Then switch will look at the IP addresses, to look at the header and see the IP address of Candy and forward it appropriately to Candy using line 3 or this communication channel. So that is how switch functions in a network. So next is routing and router. So router is also a networking device, but this is a more sophisticated networking device. What it does is that it now communicates to the internet. All your computers, for example, are connected to your switch, and the switch connects to the router. So router is more of an internet gateway. So every computer has what we call a router, or the NIC, which is the network interface card. It is present in every computer. It is because your computer has a router. That is why you are able to connect to this class. So what the router does is it connects to the internet. It goes beyond a local network, and it connects to internet and can send message through different routers. So basically, it is the router that makes up the internet. Now, remember in our previous class in cybersecurity.com, they have their Abuja branch, they have their Lagos branch, and they have their Ghana branch. Now, let's say the HR in Abuja branch wants to send a query to the chief marketing officer in Ghana branch. What it will do is that if it sends the message to the switch will forward the message to the router. So what the router will do, it will send it through multiple routers, and it will get to the router that belongs to the Ghana branch. And from there, it will go to the switch, and the switch, because it keeps the addresses of all devices that are connected to it, will now locate the computer that belongs to the chief marketing officer and serve him the query appropriately. So that is how internet is. Internet is just a bunch of routers that are connected, that are interconnected. So the route that information passes through, nobody can determine the route or the router. Just for example, if you're making call, your own is just to dial the number of the person that you want to speak with. So that is what we call network mask. I think we all see network mask every day. So what the network mask does is like a router. It will start routing this information until it gets to the final destination, or to the final network mask, which the recipient is connected to, and it will serve the information appropriately. So that is what routers does also in the internet. Then you must have heard me talk about packets. So a packet is a unit of data being transmitted over a network. So computers, if they want to talk, they don't speak English. They don't talk like we humans. They don't talk in high-level language. They speak, or they package their data in what we call packets. So these packets will now be delivered. So whoever or whichever device that is receiving these packets will now, first of all, interpret the header to make sure that the message that it is receiving belongs to it. Then in the header, there's the IP addresses and MAC address of both devices, both the sender and the receiver. For example, you want to send an email to someone. So when the receiver receives the email will come with your own email, and the email, you also see the email of the person that is sending the message. So that is what is included in the header. Then after the header, there is the main body, which is the main message. So packets has two sections, the header and the payload. It's also called payload, the payload itself. So the payload is the actual information that it is carrying. For example, the email that was sent. So the email will come with the address of the sender and their own address and other information that it will contain. Then It also comes with the body and the actual message that is being sent across the network. So the message that is being sent across the network is the payload, while the header contains the addresses of the people of the devices that are in communication. Then, most importantly, I want us to talk about the OSI model. This is another networking topic which will be very instrumental to our class when you talk about cybersecurity. OSI is very important in cybersecurity because it addresses the way information flows. Let's say I'm sending an email to someone. How does it go from my screen and appears in the screen of the recipient? This is what happens. First of all, there's what we call the physical layer, then the data link layer, the network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation and application layer. So OSI model have 7 levels. There are 7 levels of OSI model: the physical layer, the data link layer, the network layer, the transport layer, the session layer, the presentation layer, and the application layer. So we are going to take a look at each and every one of them to understand the role they play in networking, or to understand the role they play for us to be able to communicate. All right, let us talk about the physical layer, which is layer 1. So the physical layer helps to transport electric signals from one host to another. We already know what a host is. Remember, a host is any device that can be connected to the internet. Now, what are the things, or what are the physical layers, or what are the devices that helps in transporting these electric signals? Or what are these tools that help in transporting these packets, as the case may be? There's what we call fiber optic cables. This is very popular. I know most of us know what a fiber optic cable is. So fiber optic cable are tiny glasses, tiny strands of glasses that transport information at a very high speed. Up till now, fiber optic is the uh, fastest means of sending data across the network. So the physical layer is made up of uh, fiber optic cables, or wires, or network cables. In fact, let me use network cables. So the physical layer is made up of network cables, and types of network cables are fiber optic. We also have the copper wire. Then when it comes to wireless, there is radio waves, and also Wi-Fi can also be categorized under physical layer. Why I say that radio waves is an example of physical layer. For example, you the computer understands that you want to change the channel and acts accordingly, or you want to increase the volume or reduce the volume. So the it is radio that being sent. Those packets are being sent from your remote control to the television. So radio waves is also a part of a physical layer. Then The layer 2, which is data link layer. These are the layer that connects, or the wires are connected to. For example, you have what we call network interface card. So network interface card is on every mobile device. So it is this network interface card that receives information that is being sent across a wired cable. So what this network interface card does is that it receives this information and send this to the computer, and the computer will receive the information and act on it. Now, there are examples. For example, the Wi-Fi access card. Wi-Fi access card is also a layer 2 device. So what a Wi-Fi access card? I think this technology is a bit outdated, but I believe some people still make use of it. There are some computers that you have to plug in a Wi-Fi access card for it to be able to communicate to the internet. So that is an example of a data link layer. Then they use what we call MAC address as its addressing scheme. So MAC address is a 48 bits of hexadecimal digits. For example, if you open the back of your phone, or maybe any electronic device that you have, even your computer or your television, you see numbers that is like this: 94.65.9c.3b.8a.e5, and they will write MAC address at it, or they will write MAC address, put a hyphen or quotation mark, and write a bunch of numbers like this. So these numbers are hardwired to your NIC. That is why if you buy a computer today, the MAC address will remain its MAC address. You can't change, or you don't change MAC address. I think this can also be used in tracking lost devices. This MAC address helps in tracking lost devices because they are hardwired to the NIC, or the network interface card, of every mobile device. Now, what role does this MAC address play? Or what role does this data link layer play? We can interchange it, MAC address, data link layer. So just know it that data link layer, or just know it that MAC address belongs to data link layer. Now, for example, there is this computer here that has its own MAC address, is ai.2b.56.3b.8a. I just shortened it so that here won't look so cluttered. So what if let's say a computer wants to send information to another computer? It will send it to the router. And in that message, remember, like I said before, in the header will come with the address of the sender and also the address of the recipient. So this computer will put the address of this computer that it is sending the message to. So what it does now is that once this message gets to this switch, the switch will forward it to the nearby switch, and the nearby switch will forward it to the nearby switch, and the nearby switch will forward it to the final computer that has the MAC address that is meant for the message to be sent to. Then there is layer 3 network. So layer 3 delivers message from, and it is called and it makes use of what we call the IP address. So it is in network layer, which is layer 3. that you find IP address. How this functions is that maybe there's a computer whose IP address is 198.168.35.53, and it is sending a message to another computer whose IP address is 198.168.35.56. How does this information, how does this message get to the final destination, considering that they are not on the same network? So what it does is that the information that is sending in the header, it will have the IP address and the MAC address of the recipient computer. So it will not go through across different networking devices. It will go through across different networking devices, both router and different routers that are connected, until it finally gets to the destination. And when the destination, when the device, the mobile device that is receiving the message sees it, it looks at the header and checks the information that is in the header to make sure that the message is specifically addressed to it. And when it checks and sees that the information is specifically meant for it, that is when it will now act on the message. So the IP address, or layer 3, does what we call end-to-end delivery, while MAC address does what we call hop-to-hop delivery. So hop-to-hop is just the jumping from one device to another, from one device to another, until it gets to the final destination, while the IP address goes straight to the final destination. After tools like we're going to install tools like a link for MacBook. For people that use MacBook, I'm going to send the link, which I'm going to send a link which you are going to download the materials you are going to use, or the software you are going to use. You are going to make use of Kali Linux, and we're also going to make use of the VMware. So I'll prefer VMware Workstation, because that for me is better. But that will be from next week. We are going to go into practical deeply. So next week we'll treat about threats, different threats in cybersecurity, and how to mitigate those threats. So now, I don't want to overload us with so many things. We are going to end here for today. Then on Thursday, we are going to continue. We treat the remaining layers of OSI model, layer 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those are called the service layer. And we understand what are ports in computer, how ports function, because those are very necessary, because when we go deep into the practical aspect of the class, there are so many ports that we are going to look at. Like there is what we call port 80, port 440. Those are some of the most popular ports. This is HTTP and HTTPS. Then FTP, SSH, which is port 21, Telnet, which is port 23, DNS, I think DNS is port 53 or so. So it is when we talk about the application, presentation, session, and transport layer that we will understand these ones. So what we are going to do now is that we are going to digest what we have learned and prepare for the next class on Thursday, after which we are now going deep into the practical aspect of our boot camp. So we have come to the end of today's class. So right now, we'll be taking questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can indicate and ask your questions. We'll be taking questions for the next 30 minutes before we end. Is there anybody that wants to ask any question? If there is anything that you don't understand in the class that you want to know, you are free to ask your questions. And remember, we are going to post this video in my YouTube channel so that you can revert back to it